Well, it's time now for our discussion of the political issues of the day. Our political editor, Lyndal Curtis, is joined by Liberal MP Josh Frydenberg and Labor MP David Bradbury.
Josh Frydenberg and David Bradbury, welcome to News 24.
Good afternoon.
Thank you.
David Bradbury, is there a rift between the Prime Minister and the Foreign Affairs Minister on the question of a no-fly zone over Libya?
Look, I don't think so. I've seen the comments that have been reported both by the Foreign Minister and the Prime Minister, and I think the Prime Minister's comments have been entirely consistent with the position that she's now been stating from as far back as the 2nd of March. If we look at what she said in the House on the 2nd of March, she made it very clear that the government supports the UN Security Council considering this question of a no-fly zone, and that has been the position. I note that in her more recent comments there's been some focus on the fact that she has said that any response should not be limited to any one particular measure. Well, I don't think that that is in any way inconsistent with the proposition that the no-fly zone is something that we are seeking through the UN Security Council, but to the extent that that is a part of a range of measures, then I think that that position has been entirely consistent throughout.
Josh Frydenberg, coalition frontbenchers have been trying to make much of this reported rift between the two, but if you look at the language from both Julia Gillard and Kevin Rudd, they've both advocated a no-fly zone, haven't they?
Not at all. This is a real rift with significant ramifications for Australian foreign policy. In effect, Lyndal, we've got two Prime Ministers out there at the same time from the same party. Julia Gillard said that a no-fly zone is just one of the options to consider. Kevin Rudd goes on to CNN and tells the world that Australia's been asking for a no-fly zone for a couple of weeks.
But didn't Julia Gillard previously advocate a no-fly zone?
No. And Lyndal, the point here is even the US Embassy has reportedly sought a clarification from the Australian government. And then you have Julia Gillard's office backgrounding journalists on the front pages of Australian papers today saying Kevin Rudd is out of control. This is clearly unsustainable. The Prime Minister and the Foreign Minister are not speaking. They're not syncing their lines. And Stephen Smith himself, the Defence Minister, said after he left the post of Foreign Minister that there needs to be no difference in position between the Foreign Minister and the Prime Minister of a country. Clearly this is not happening. It's sending exactly the wrong message to the world, and I think this is going to have very serious ramifications for Australia.
David Bradbury, Kevin Rudd's been very strong in his advocacy for a no-fly zone, both in his public statements, his interviews, and also taking to the social media site Twitter to advocate it. Has he been going a little bit over the top in this?
Look, I think he's been strong in his advocacy of our position, and there's nothing wrong with that at all. In fact, I think that that's a good thing. And in relation to whether or not he should be, in relation to whether or not he should be tweeting about his position on this, I think the Prime Minister made what I thought was a pretty good point on this, and that was to say that right throughout this part of Northern Africa and the Middle East, there are a number of movements underway where people are using these forms of communication. So, look, in terms of the strength behind the advocacy of the government's position on this, I don't see there being any difficulty with that. But to come back to the point of whether there's any difference, I listened carefully to what Josh had to say, and frankly, I thought he pretty much said everything that I said in terms of the comments that have been attributed to both the Prime Minister and the Foreign Minister. And when you look at those comments side by side, we can try and make all sorts of mischief around that, but when you look at the comments on the face of them, there is no inconsistency between them.
Is there an underlying...
That's not true at all. That's not true at all, Lyndal. Clearly, Julia Gillard has said it's just one of the options to be considered. Kevin Rudd is going out there and telling the world we must have a no-fly zone.
Yeah, but he hasn't said that's the only thing.
No, that's what he's telling. You look at the transcript from CNN. That's exactly what he's saying. That's exactly what he is saying, and the Prime Minister and the Foreign Minister aren't even speaking, and Julia Gillard has made that point. So, this is completely unsustainable.
Well, that's all of your commentary, Josh, but the facts remain that the position that's been asserted by the Foreign Minister is not inconsistent in any way with the no-fly zone measure being a part of a broader suite of measures. And I think that if you view the facts of what's actually been said here, rather than injecting the sort of commentary that, for obvious reasons, political reasons, you want to inject into this discussion. But if you look at the facts, I think that it's pretty clear that there is consistency between both what the Prime Minister and the Foreign Minister have said.
Josh Frydenberg, if we can go to differences of opinion on your side of politics, Nick Minchin has said that he doesn't accept Ross Garnaut's update on the science of climate change, that he in fact believes the planet is in a cooling phase. Now, your leader has previously said he accepts that there is some validity to the science of climate change and that humans may be contributing to that. Are there still quite large differences of opinion amongst the coalition ranks about the science?
No, and Nick's entitled to his opinion, but Tony Abbott's made very clear as the leader his opinion, and I share his opinion that there is climate change and humans do contribute to it. This is not a debate about the science, Lyndal. This is the debate about a tax, a new nationwide economic measure which is going to hurt households and push up electricity prices by more than $300 per household and petrol prices by more than 6.5 cents per litre. And the truth of the matter here, the truth of the matter here is that this is a nationwide tax and it's going to hurt Australian families. And this is a broken promise that Julia Gillard said before the election that no government she leads will introduce a carbon tax. She is now taking a carbon tax. And I find it very interesting, Lyndal, why didn't Julia Gillard refer to a carbon tax in her speech to the US Congress? It's because the United States hasn't gone down the pathway of a carbon tax. And that's pretty notable.
David Bradbury, in Ross Garnaut's report, he pointed out that fewer people believe that climate change is happening and that there is some trouble selling the science on this. Has the government not done enough to sell its message on the science, rather concentrating on the economic side of the argument?
Look, is it any wonder that people are confused when it comes to questions around the science on climate change? The Liberal Party evidently is confused enough to have a senior senator out there saying one thing and then having to be pulled into line by Tony Abbott today. I think that to the extent that what's occurred today is that we now have some clarity that at last the Liberal Party has reaffirmed a commitment to its 5% reduction. It's confirmed a commitment, or at least a belief that climate change is real. They've confirmed a belief that not only is climate change real, but it is man-made, except for Senator Minchin, Bernardi and others. But at least Mr Abbott has come out and said that. So at least to the extent that there can be some bipartisanship on those points, I think that it's incumbent upon all members of Parliament to get out there and to make the case when it comes to the climate change science. But can I make this point? That now that we have clarity around those issues, the focus of this debate really will start to shift towards who has the plan to deliver those reductions, who has the plan to tackle climate change. And there are two very stark alternatives here. You've got the Abbott plan, which is about taking taxes out of my pocket, your pocket, the pockets of taxpayers and paying assistance to polluters, or you've got the Gillard plan, which is about taxing the big polluters and providing assistance to households.
Then don't you, David, have to get some of your detail out quicker than is planned?
Well, Treasury's actually modelled this, Lyndal, and at $26 a tonne, that's why it's going to lifting electricity prices per household by more than $300 and petrol prices more than 6 cents.
And
that's
Josh
your own modelling.
Josh will jump on.
That's your own modelling.
The scare campaign. Tony Abbott said that he was, the great advocate of truth in this debate. Well, the point that Josh has just made, entirely inconsistent with the premise of your question, Lyndal, which is, of course, we need to get further detail out there, but in the absence of that, you will get the scare campaigns that we're getting. But can I make this point as well? And that is that when it comes to a big debate of this sort, this is not going to be won or lost in a week or two. This is going to be a knock 'em down, drag 'em out fight that will go on for the entire term of this government. And we are committed to pressing ahead to make the case, not just on the science of climate change, but to make the case in relation to our plan, which is the best plan. It is the cheapest and most effective way of making our economy make the transition to a low-carbon future. We're committed to doing that, and we will fight tooth and nail between now and the next election to achieve that. Detail will come, But this will be a debate that we will have on the facts.
Promises. Lyndal, the truth of the matter is, on the front page of The Australian, Craig Emerson, the Trade Minister in the Gillard government, was warning the Green groups and his fellow members of Cabinet, do not put a carbon tariff on the Australian economy. This could lead to a depression, he said in his words. And there's great divisions on the Labor side.
Tariffs. No,
he's talking about a carbon tariff.
That is one of the most misleading things I've heard in what has been a debate that has been characterised by misleading comments. For you to say that Craig Emerson's comments were to criticise the pricing of carbon is just a total deception. It's a total deception. The point he was making was we should not move towards green tariffs. Tariffs. Not
carbon tariffs. Why was he attacked by the ACTU, Jeff Lawrence? Look, Lyndal, the truth of the matter is the Labor Party, they can try to point to divisions on our side, but they are riddled divisions. Not only does Kevin Rudd want Julia Gillard's job, not only is Tony Burke hovering around, not only is Bill Shorten and Greg Combet, measuring up the drapes in the lodge, but, the truth of the matter is Craig Emerson is out there having a go effectively at the Greens and the unions, and they're having a go at him. So this is, division on the Labor side.
That's just absolute diversion from the real issue.
If we can move on to one final issue, AFL footballer, former star Brendan Favola spoke last night about his battles with gambling, with alcohol and with depression. While it's obviously a tragic story for him and something very difficult for him to speak about, Josh Frydenberg, is it good that public figures feel they can speak about questions of depression and mental illness in public these days?
Absolutely, and I did watch what Brendan Favola was saying last night on the Footy Show, and you couldn't help but feel for him. And he has a number of serious problems that he needs assistance with. And Andrew Robb on our side has also been very outspoken about some of the challenges, the health challenges that he has faced. The truth of the matter, in Australia, more than 2,000 people committed suicide in any particular year, and this is leading to much pain in our community, and we need to do more, and it should be a bipartisan commitment to do more for early intervention, to fund proper research, to fund proper healthcare services. And we took to the last election a very significant policy in that regard, and people like Patrick McGorry and John Mendoza have spoken out about the need for more resources. So I just hope that the Gillard government, come the budget, will make a more significant contribution to helping those in need of mental health services.
David Bradbury, your government's flagged there's more to do on mental health, but does the fact that people are willing to speak about in public, people who others may see as role models, help others to speak, to deal with it, to acknowledge that it is a part of a lot of people's lives?
Look, I think that what has occurred with Brendan Favola making the sort of confession that he has to the rest of the community, in a way, has really allowed people to get a bit of an insight into some of the personal challenges that he's been facing. I think that it is all too easy for people to have a look at things from the sidelines and to pass judgment very quickly on the situations that they see emerge before them. But I think to hear the story of someone like Brendan Favola makes us all think that we shouldn't be as quick to judge about things that we see. And to be honest, it takes a lot of courage for someone with such a profile to come out and to say what he said. And I hope that will inspire many others that are facing the sorts of challenges that he has faced and continues to face to seek the assistance that they need.
David Bradbury and Josh Frydenberg, thank you very much for your time on this Friday.
Thank you,
Thanks
Lyndal.
very much, Lyndal.
Thanks, David.
Thanks.